as an occupational therapy business owner, do you ever pause and assess the occupational performance of your business? Figure out what's working, what's not working, step back curiously and really observe, dig into the elements and the factors, how they're playing together? Or are you just too busy, just doing one thing after another, never getting through that to-do list, and there's no time to pause and have a good look at what's going on? I find that a lot of OT business owners are just busy. There are so many people that need their help, and it is hard to say no. And so it becomes difficult to take the time to make that pause. It's something I've done a lot in my own business as I find my capacity fluctuating over the last few years between the pandemic, shifts in family dynamics, perimenopause, shifts in the way I want to be working and don't want to be working. And so I do a lot of pausing to reflect. And I definitely help other OT business owners do that in the Activate Vitality program. But I wanted to make this podcast a little bit of a workshop. So there is a PDF linked in the show notes for you to use as a workbook. It's about 10 pages, but that's a lot of pages for drawing because we are using the Kawa model to have a look at the flow of your business. You're listening to the Brave OT podcast with me, Carlin Neek. This podcast is all about empowering occupational therapists to step up, level up, blaze some trails, and maybe engage in a little conscious rebellion in service of our profession, our clients, our work, our businesses, and living our mission wholeheartedly. We are all about keeping it real, doing hard things, unhustling, being curious, exploring, growing through our challenges, and finding joy, fulfillment, and vitality as we do so. Really, we're OTing ourselves and each other. I hope you love this episode. Now, if you're listening while you're driving or walking or making supper, still listen and go later and do the workbook. There will still be value just in listening through it. For the next little bit, we're going to be talking about finding your flow, exploring your OT business through the Kawa model. The Kawa model is centered around a client and the river as their life flow. Kawa means river in Japanese. And in this case, we're going to be applying that same concept, but thinking about your career or business journey as the life flow, that journey of the river. Your professional journey is much like a river, sometimes flowing smoothly, sometimes hitting obstacles, and always moving towards something more expansive. The Kawa model is an occupational therapy model created in Japan, and it uses the metaphor of a river. Through this podcast and the workshop, we're going to use it to help you visualize and reflect on your path from where you started to where you'd like to be, understanding the elements that influence your journey along the way. You'll explore different elements of your business river, your achievements, challenges, environments, and resources. You'll identify areas where you feel jammed up and clarify what you need to move forward with purpose and vitality. Through this reflective exercise, I hope you'll gain insight into how to navigate your journey from here with more clarity and identify the support you might need along the way. I want to be sure to give credit to the Kawa Made Easy publication. I've linked it in the document. I'll put it in the show notes as well. It's a guide to applying the Kawa model in OT practice, and it was put together by Michael Iwama and Chio-Ju Yin. Before we jump into today's episode, let's give a shout out to our sponsor, Jane, a clinic management software and EMR. Whether you're just starting to do your research or you've been contemplating switching your software for a while now, the Jane team understands that the process can feel intimidating. That's why their goal is to provide you with all the onboarding resources you need to make the switch as smooth as possible. Jane offers a personalized call to set up your account, a free date import, and a variety of online resources to get you up and running quickly. And if you need a helping hand along the way, you'll have access to unlimited phone, email, and chat support included with your Jane subscription. If you're interested in learning more, book a one-on-one demo at jane.app/switch. And if you decide to make the switch, don't forget to use the code VITALITY at sign up to receive a 1-month grace period on your new Jane account. Now, I must admit, I only learned about the Kawa model in the last couple of years and haven't used it extensively in my own practice. So this is a bit of a stretch for me. I'm going to do it imperfectly. Some of you who are listening and much more fluid with this model will probably notice places where I slip up or misinterpret something. So bear with me. I'm all about growing and expanding and stretching the comfort zone. So here we are. In the Kawa model, the participant's own interpretation of the elements and their interplay is really important. So please feel free with this to draw your own diagrams, use the images for inspiration, or find another way to express your journey, a way that works for you. Maybe you prefer to write or describe it to somebody. I invite you to consider the life flow of your OT career as the river and the bird's eye view in the context of a bit of a timeline of your career. At any point in your career, that liver may have looked a little different. The elements, the pace, the breadth, the depth, and the location were different at different stages. You're welcome to start at any point that serves you. I chose to start when I graduated, but focused more in detail on the time since I started my business. There are 5 elements to consider in the Kawa model. The river flow is your life flow and priorities. So, in this context, we're probably thinking about the life flow of your career or the life flow of your business. But this is all subject to interpretation by the person who's drawing their Kawa. The riverbanks are the environments within which you're working. So, environments and contexts. So, that could be social, that could be physical, could be otherwise. The rocks are obstacles and challenges. Driftwood are influencing factors. These could be positive, these could be negative, these could be neutral. And then the spaces. The spaces are opportunities for flow enhancement. The spaces are where the river flows. So consider if the life of your career or business was a river, what would it look like? Imagine for a moment drawing a bird's eye view, or actually draw it in the workbook. Again, the workbook is linked in the show notes. Include a starting point where you are now and leave room for the future. And if you're sitting down with a pen and paper doing this, press pause and do the drawing. Let's take a closer look at your journey to here. Choose a few significant points in your journey and add details. You could add words and graphics to your bird's eye view, or you could draw a cross section for any points along the journey. That would be helpful to explore further. So, bird's eye view is like seeing that winding river in its entirety, like almost like a map. And the cross section view is if we sliced at 90 degrees through the river and had a window, and we could see the bottom of the river, the sides of the river, the top of the river, everything that's in the river. So, you're having a window into a cross section of the river. And feel free to use these following questions as considerations, as explorations. You can omit any of them. You don't have to answer them all, but just think about these and how you might depict them or describe them on your diagram. At any given time, we're looking at a cross section or a turn in the river or a point in the river. Where were you? What were you doing? What was the experience like? What created flow in your work at that time? What did you learn or accomplish? What were you proud of? What were the obstacles? Who was around you? What did your days look like? How did you feel at the end of the day? And what prompted change or prompted you to start your business, if that's the stage you're looking at? Draw as many cross sections or points along the river as are meaningful to you. Now let's look at what work is like today. Reflect on the flow of your business today and write or draw how the different parts work together to make your current situation. And I'll just remind you again, I know it's tricky when you're first learning this model. The 5 elements that are working together are the river flow, that life flow and priorities, the river banks, the environments and contexts, the rocks, those are obstacles and challenges, driftwood, those are influencing factors. They could be positive, negative, neutral, things like attributes or helpers or skills or difficult attributes, that sort of thing. Anything that's influencing it. Spaces. Now, spaces are the opportunities for flow enhancement. So typically we're drawing in riverbanks, rocks, driftwood, and then maybe labeling those types of things, what those are. Thinking about work today, which environments do you work in? What are you doing? What does work feel like to you? What facilitates flow in your work and business? What lights you up? What are you learning and how are you growing? What are the disruptors and challenges? Which are your favorite and least favorite days of the week? Why? Who's around you? What feels expansive, playful, joyful, easy, exciting, dreamy? What feels constrictive, tight, sticky, paralyzing? What are your values? How do you connect with them? Your business values, your OT values, your life values, do those feel some overlap and alignment? Are they expressed in your day to day? Which personal attributes are influencing your business flow? Which resources are helping you right now? What do you know is ahead? And what do you need to navigate that? So, once you've taken some time, again, pause to do these exercises at the different points, thinking about where you're headed and where you are now. I'd like you to consider your observations and characterizations of the elements influencing your work and business right now, and what are some ways you might enhance the flow? What might help you facilitate moving toward that next space, the space that has even more flow that you'd like to be? How can you create space for flow? Can any of the rocks be made smaller or left behind? Will they just tumble behind you as the river moves on? Can the river banks be widened or narrowed? How might you use the driftwood to help push away rocks or change the banks? What's ahead of you on your river? What's needed to navigate that? What do you crave or desire as your river keeps moving forward? What do you need in terms of support and people around you? More of, less of? What might you do with this awareness? Does your river have a clear endpoint? Like retirement is coming, the end of a job, the end of an era? Or is it a few turns away and out of sight? It's okay if you can't see it. What do you need to better understand and navigate your river forward? So, in the workbook, I leave you space to continue with this reflection. I would love to hear how this reflection impacts you, what you notice, how you notice yourself in relation to this river. I'll tell you a little bit about my river. I've done this exercise a couple times myself, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about my river. And if you're a person who would prefer not to be influenced by hearing somebody else's story, I encourage you to pause here, go do your own kawa, and come back and listen later. Because again, your river is probably going to look a lot different from my river. You might even symbolize different things differently, and that's okay. That's the whole idea with the kawa. How you subjectively perceive the different elements coming together is really important. But here's what I've done. When I look at starting my career as an OT, I really wanted to work in pediatrics. And we had moved to Ottawa because my husband was transferred there with his job boyfriend at the time. And I was placed in a job that wasn't my ideal job, but it was the job I could get at the time in that city. One of the limitations was that I wasn't fluent in French and wasn't able to qualify to apply for many of the jobs in the public health system there. So I was placed by a recruiter at a clinic. It was a physiotherapy clinic that had an OT there and psychologists coming in and out, doing some interdisciplinary return to work sort of work. And I thought, okay, that'll be all right for now. I'll gain some experiences. So at that time, I was living in a new city. That was one of the banks of my river was Ottawa. There were some language barriers to being able to work in that public health system. And I worked with this lovely group of people who really embraced me and really made me feel supported as a new grad. My husband and I were starting our life together in the same city. We had lived long distance until that point, and there was a lot of joy and fun in figuring it out and making friends and finding our way and enjoying our day to day activities. The work was a stretch for me, but I expected it to be at that stage, doing things that were new to me, but I had a lot of support and mentorship. We moved a couple more times, had a couple kids. So this is the part I'll fast forward through. I went on a couple maternity leaves. In Canada, we have 1 year of paid maternity leave as part of our government benefit, and that was just great. It's not paid at 100%, but still having a year off for each kid was wonderful. We moved to Calgary, And I was continuing to work for that same company, ended up working in home care for a while, and then decided to start my business on the side in 2007. I actually had my second child in 2008, so I'd started on the side in 2007. And in 2011, I decided to go all in on my business and started contracting at a place that had me doing a particular type of assessment. I was an easily detached member of the team, but they had me going out and doing assessments, and I really enjoyed them. And I met some really neat people. I continued to build my business while I was still working part time in home care. In 2012, my dad died and it was unexpected. He was only 59, and that was pretty early on in my entrepreneurial journey. I hadn't quite found a flow entirely in my business at that point and was still subcontracting, that sort of thing, but had the flexibility to take time off to be with him and help care for him in that time. So I was very grateful for that. At the time when I started my business, I was really craving more flexibility. I wanted to be flexible with my time and work so that I could focus on prioritizing my family, prioritizing travel, and have flexibility to volunteer in the kids' schools and that sort of thing. And at the same time, I wanted to not worry about money. So I just wanted enough money that I was not feeling concerned. So this was never like a giant get rich quick scheme or anything like that. It was just to have enough money to feel comfortable raising a couple kids, and I did. My business got busy enough that I was turning work away, took on some contractors at one point, and tried mentoring others to help with the overflow. Hired a VA at some point and decided that it was somewhere in 2019 that I was feeling a bit burnt out by the workflow. There were things I was tired about in my business. And so in 2019, I started looking at building something online that could be more of a leveraged offer. And so I was looking at maybe making a planner or an online coaching program or something like that. And I wasn't sure what that would look like, but I ended up investing in a coaching program that taught me how to build an online course and led to the whole Activate Vitality program that I now offer to OT business owners, as well as the Activate Vitality personal development planner. That was actually number one in a few categories on Amazon Canada last week. So that was very exciting. That was 2019. And then 2020 happened. And oh my goodness, we're all pivoting and finding a new way. And it was a perfect time to really expand into my online social media marketing and connecting with international OTs and building a network and really leaning into those non traditional services. So, looking at that environment shift, it shifted from me being out and about in the community and seeing clients to me being online, going on YouTube, going on Facebook, finding Facebook groups, going to online summits, meeting all these interesting OTs who are trying to do things differently. That environment was very different. And we were all in this place where we were making it work in the pandemic while essentially living in an ongoing health crisis. We were in a global pandemic, right? It was very stressful. It was an ongoing crisis. So there was stress with that. There was everybody at home. There were people being laid off. There was fear for our health. And then there was social conflict with different people having different messages and different opinions about restrictions and such. So in it, I really exercised my flexibility and adaptability and creativity and desire to connect. Those were my driftwood. Those river banks were the pandemic. They were the people and the environments and being online. And then there were those rocks, like things coming up and we're in lockdown. We're not in lockdown. I'm learning online platforms and trying to connect them together and building funnels and learning Canva and figuring out YouTube. And oh my goodness, those were some of those things were driftwood, some of those things were rocks, but man, they were floating all over the place and connecting with people who can help me with those things. And then a little further down the road through 2020, there was some stress. In 2021, it was more like possibility and being okay with it just not yet thriving, trying to figure it out. It's not supposed to be smooth yet. And so, really working on smoothing things out. The economy in 2022 really shifted, and People were hesitant to invest in some of the things, or a little bit tired of some of those online things happening. I'm looking at my driftwood too. At the banks, I've got my economy. On my driftwood, I've got some social media fatigue. I love my people at the same time. Rocks, I'm feeling tired. What am I doing? Like, I should be a success by now. Those were some of the things that I've labeled on rocks. And then when I did this in 2023, I floated myself some driftwood actually. And I put in pause for a bit, produce less, do what you love, revise. And I wrote myself a note, reflecting on all of this at that time. I made a note that said, "You can't speed up the river. It is what it is. Let the river carry you. Your effort to change it is what is exhausting you." And that was just this big aha, like, oh, okay, take a minute. This thing's going to grow as fast as it's going to grow. Let it be. And that's not abandoning it. That's not giving up. That's not working hard. That's not stopping the hard work. I was still working hard, but I needed to be more allowing. I needed to lean into just not trying to speed up the river, sort of let it carry me was a really big, big thing for me. I found another one I had done along the way too, and it showed an expansiveness that came up and that there was comfort and discomfort in the spaciousness. There's this sense of being autonomous and independent and not in crisis, but feeling a little bit loosey goosey and lacking structure. I didn't want too much structure. My driftwood was creative, brave, empathetic, caring, persistent, cautious, optimistic, empowering. Some rocks along the bank were how others perceive me, some inconsistencies in my business, some uncontrollable factors about the flow of work, and then the home office, the house, and whether my family's here or not at any given time. And so, anyways, these are all things that are floating in my river. They influenced me differently at different times. And I'm wondering if any ahas come out of this for you. I would love it if you would email me, cneek@balanceworksot.ca, or share on social media and tag me. I'm on Facebook a lot. I'm Carlin OT Coach. I would love to hear if you have any breakthroughs from this exercise of trying to find flow in your business through the Kawa model. If you would like to learn more about the Activate Vitality program that I've mentioned a couple times, there are some links in the workbook. I'll put some links in the show notes as well for you to explore more, because this is the sort of thing we do in Activate Vitality. We explore, we figure out what's flowing, we figure out what's not flowing, we make it work better. Sometimes we want to move things along differently. Sometimes we want to grow our business. Sometimes we want to reduce our effort. Sometimes we want to slow things down and adjust, and all things are okay. It's more about getting curious and connecting to what it is we need at the time. And you really have to pause and check in with others and discuss it and be in community to do that in a really lovely way. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, be brave, OTs.